So welcome everyone. We are thrilled that you could join us here. My name is Maria Payan. I am going to be your moderator tonight. I am co-founder of Sussex Health and Environmental Network, also a member of the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition and a representative regionally for Socially Responsible Agriculture Project. We are doing multiple panels, a little bit juggling tonight. So we're going to go through, I'll introduce the panel members to you, and then we will do a presentation. First, some slides with Dr. Muhammad Akhtar, and then we will switch over to Maya to go through the presentation about the Green Amendment. And after that, we will open it up to question and answer from the audience, and then Carrie Evelyn Harris will take on the next steps and the action items. So let me introduce to you, we have Representative Medina Wilson-Anton. Medina is the representative for the 26th District in Newark Bear, where she lives with her husband. She is an alumni of the University of Delaware and holds a bachelor's degree in international relations and Asian studies. While at the University of Delaware, Representative Wilson-Anton was actively involved in several campus organizations where she held leadership positions, including the Muslim Student Association, Students for Justice in Palestine, as well as her sorority. She worked for 2 years as a legislative fellow in the state legislature and an additional year as a legislative aide for the 26th and 27th districts. In these capacities, she researched legislation, staffed committee meetings, and communicated with residents that helped them with a variety of issues. And this experience has made her very well-rounded and a superstar that she is. We are thrilled to have her here tonight. And we also have with us Maya Van Rossum, who is the founder of the Green Amendments for the Generations, grassroots nonprofit organization inspiring a nationwide movement to secure a constitutional recognition and protection of environmental rights. Maya is the author of the Green Amendment, Securing Our Right to a Healthy Environment, in which she coined and defined the term, the Green Amendment. She was a lead environmental petitioner in the Pennsylvania case that restored legal life to Pennsylvania's Environmental Rights Amendment. Maya is also the Delaware River Keeper for over 26 years, I believe, leading the watershed-based advocacy organization, over 28 years, excuse me. And Maya protects the health of the Delaware River and its tributaries. In partnership with Maya and the Green Amendments for the Generation, constitutional amendments have been proposed in 11 states to date, with New York formally passing the Green Amendment in 2021. And we also have with us Dr. Muhammad Akhtar, who many of you know. Dr. Akhtar served as the Executive Director of the American Public Health Association, Executive Director of the National Medical Association, Director of the DC Department of Health, and numerous other positions, worked under multiple administrations, has written dozens of publications, and testified before Congress on numerous occasions. Most importantly to me, Dr. Akhtar understands health disparities and the relationship between environmental health and public health. And he is just an incredible member of our county and our community. And we're very grateful for him and his wife, Jeanette. And we also have with us Carrie Evelyn Harris, who needs no introduction. Carrie, I think everybody knows in Delaware. She's a veteran, activist, community advocate, and organizer, and she ran for the US Senate in 2018. Carrie is the US Environmental Justice Program Strategist for Nominee, and she is the Executive Director of Opportunity Knox in Delaware. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Medina, who is the sponsor for this bill, and we're so thrilled to have you here. And let you say a few words before we get kicked off.
Thanks, Maria. And I just want to clarify, I hope I'm not getting kicked off. I do have to leave early, unfortunately, and I wish I could stay for the entire program, but I'm sure I'll get the skinny, the long and the short of it afterwards. So Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Medina Wilson-Anton. I represent the 26th District, which is in the Newark Bear area, centered around Old Baltimore Pike, close to that mall that everybody loves to come and shop in. And I was elected in 2020 at the age of 26, which makes me the youngest member of the General Assembly right now. And when we think about the environment, we often think about young people. And I can tell you that as a member of the millennial generation, environmental sustainability and making sure that everyone has a clean and healthy environment has been a part of my upbringing, as well as, part of my generation's charge. I'm excited to share with you all that today HB 220 was officially filed in Delaware. And so, yes, we can do some muted applause. And so if you're interested in seeing the actual text of the bill, which we're talking about tonight, you can look it up on the legislative website now. And HB 220 is a bill that would create an amendment to the Delaware Bill of Rights, giving all Delawareans the right to clean air, clean water, and a clean environment. I believe that we need a green amendment in Delaware because we need to enshrine these rights in our Constitution. For far too long, these rights have been trampled on all across our state by corporations, and the state has failed to protect communities in these situations. Today, on April 28th, 2022, there are Delawareans who woke up in their homes where water flows out of the faucet that they can't drink, that they can't take a shower in, while other Delawareans woke up in neighborhoods where the air that they breathe in makes them sick and maybe covers their cars in some kind of dust they have to wipe off every morning. And so I'm excited that this year we're taking a step in the right direction. And I'm excited to be working with so many dedicated community advocates that Maria has introduced, as well as others who are joining us tonight to talk about this important topic. In order to make this bill a law, it needs to pass both the House and the Senate with a 2/3 majority because it's a constitutional amendment, and it has to pass a consecutive legislative session. So we're in the second half of this General Assembly, and so it would have to pass again next year or the year after that. And if it doesn't pass this year, then we're looking at least 3 years before it can go into law. So it's really important that we all come together, work as hard as we can, reach out to as many legislators as possible to make sure that we get enough support to get this bill over the finish line before the end of June. So time is really of the essence, and having conversations like this in the community where we can talk about both how this bill can help people and also dispel some of the myths and misconceptions that there are about what it could do negatively. It's really important that we have those conversations. And I'll just underline that because it's a 2/3 majority that's needed, that means that we can't just pass this bill on a party line. We need bipartisan support. So we need to make sure that we're bringing together all stakeholders and building a real coalition to get this passed. So I'm really excited that we have folks like Maria, Carrie, Dr. Akhter, who are all on the panel to talk about how important this is in the community of Sussex County. We did have a conversation with faith leaders statewide, and I think we're going to be having a series of these conversations. And I think that's really the most important thing about getting something so monumental like this passed. We got to bring everybody together, have sometimes difficult conversations, and find middle ground where we can all work together to move forward to help Delawareans. So I'm super excited. If you can't tell through the Zoom, through the screen, I'm very excited about this. And I wish I could stay for the entire Zoom call, but I will be following up with everyone afterwards. And I'm looking forward to hearing how the rest of the conversation goes. So thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we have the bill number. It is HB 220. Yay. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Akhter so that he can get into some of the local issues that we have going on and why this is really important. Dr. Akhter.
Back again. Good evening, everybody. I'm so grateful that you all took the time to join us this evening. I'm going to present to you some scientific facts so that we can go and present to our family members, our community people, and ultimately to the state legislators, why do we need to have the Green Amendment in a state like Delaware? And so I'm a medical doctor. I've served in many states around the country and have examined this issue very carefully. The first time I was appointed director of the Department of Health for state of Missouri, I went to see a local health department official And he brought in a graph to me which showed that the infant mortality, the death of the children under 1 year of age, increased on the day that the air quality was listed poor. It actually links together. So I have a few slides. I'm going to run by them, and then we be open for any kind of question that you might have. All right. Well, we're going to talk about 5 things. One of them is that the clean air, clean water is a basic human right. And second is the current system isn't working. And then third system is that we need to have this to support health of our people and to support our economy. And finally, to prevent excessive disease and death in our community. And so let's start with the first one. Here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is it that the human being needs at a very basic level, fundamental level? And that is air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, very basic. If those needs are not met, a human being cannot progress beyond a certain level. A child may die if the air is so polluted, and it happens to many, many children. And to be a good citizen, a very productive citizen, we really need to have a good base at the very base. So that's why the Secretary General of the United Nations, former Secretary General Kofi Annan, declared that clean air and clean water is human right. It is the right of every human, God-given right. And so we really need to have a green amendment in our state so that, like the representative said, people shouldn't wake up in the morning and have difficulty breathing. This is another issue. Last month, this report was issued by Environment Integrity Project, and it showed the status of our surface water in our state. And the 97% of our river and streams water is contaminated, and 100% of our estuaries are contaminated, which means that they are not good for human use. You can't bathe in them, you can't swim. It's not good for aquatic life. So my question is, why did this happen? We have so much going on in our state and all these laws and regulations and rules, and yet this is the result. We are number 1 in the nation in terms of polluted water, number 1. There are 49 other states that are better than us. And the reason this happened is because there are so many people in charge. You could start with DENREC, our environmental agency in the state, health department, federal EPA, Army Corps of Engineers. And when there are so many cooks in the works, things fall through the cracks. Everybody's doing something, but they're not coordinating with each other. There are so many cracks. So green amendment, when implemented, will remove the cracks. So things will not fall through the crack. Everybody will have the responsibility to assure that the water is clean, and we will have its opportunity to revitalize our rivers and our streams. And so that's why current system isn't working. We need to do something better, and the Green Amendment is the answer to make sure that we get the things done. The third area is what causes disease. The scientific research has shown us that there are 2 things that set us up to get ill. One of them is genetics, what we bring from our parents, and we can't do anything about it. You know, we can't choose our parents. So we are who we are. And then the other piece is that how we live, whether we exercise, what we eat. These 2 things set us up. And then when the environment is right, that seed that's set up inside us then grows and we become sick. So the exposure to the environment is so very fundamental in causation of disease. And so it's just like you all know that if somebody has a gene for skin cancer and they go and expose themselves to sun a lot more than they need to, they'll get the skin cancer. But if they avoid exposing and put the cream on, they can protect themselves. The other thing, the the diet, the exercise, we can control, but the environment we cannot control. We can't control what kind of air I breathe. It may be good this morning, it may not be good tomorrow. And so that is something that's collective responsibility, and that's what we assign to our government to really make that happen. So for the health of the community, it's important that there be a green amendment where the government become the trustee of our environment and make sure that they, elected officials as well as appointed officials, fulfill their responsibilities as trustees. No matter who we are, rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, independent, black, brown, green, whatever color we may be, we all love our children. And our children are at the highest risk when the water, the air, and the soil is contaminated, because they play close to the ground, they breathe more air in, they run around a lot, they drink more water, and their bodies are developing. And so they get these things like delayed development, asthma, mental health issues from the exposure to that. You know that if you go to schools, you'll find out how many people have mental health issues in our school system, how many children have asthma. And when a child is sick, he is not able or she's not able to learn appropriately. And so when a child who's sick then grows up to be an adult, he's most likely going to be an adult who is going to be in poor health. And then a less educated and poor health individual is going to have a low paying job. And that's, I have seen many times, I've heard people say, oh, the poor people have all the disease. But I have also seen that people are poor because they're sick. And if we can fix our environment, we can break the cycle of poverty, and we can also build a very strong economy if our people are healthy. When an industry wants to relocate, they look at a state, not only that has low taxes, but also that has healthy and educated workforce. And that's why we need green amendment, so our state continue to be good financial shape. And the final thing is that people, adults like you and me, who live in an environment where the low level contamination exists, which is all over the state, everywhere. And we breathe in the air, low level of contamination, toxins. We then start to develop these things inside us after 20, 30 years, cancer, heart disease, lung disease, diabetes. The women will have miscarriages and low birth weight, birth defects, mental health issues, you name it. And they are all related to environmental exposure when the woman was pregnant and then as adults. And so what we have found out in our own state, and this is going to come as a surprise to you, that we are the second highest state in the nation with the rate of new cancer cases. Second only to Kentucky. And so we have the highest number of new cases of cancer taking place in our state. Heart disease, lung disease, Millsboro, Dagsboro area has the highest rate of these illnesses in the state. Why is it so? We are no so different than the people in across the state in Maryland or in Pennsylvania. It's because our environment is contaminated. Not only our surface water is contaminated, but our groundwater is also contaminated in our state. And so all of these diseases do two things. They cause heck of a misery to the individual who's sick and their families, but they also cost a lot more. Guess what? There are two states, other states that are higher in healthcare cost in the United States than Delaware. We pay through the nose for the care of all of these people who are getting sick because we don't have the right environment in which people could be healthy. And so that's why we need the Green Amendment. In addition to being the healthcare cost and misery that it brings, these people, these conditions are also underlying conditions what make them susceptible to any new virus or organism that might come to pass. And so this is the data from our state. for COVID-19 infections. And you can see Sussex County, which is the most infected county in the state. Not only our surface water, our groundwater, our air contamination, we are the worst. Our people got the worst of the cases. 41% of Delawarean, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation study, are at risk of getting the disease from a new virus. And people, those of us who are 65 and over, 58% of them are at high risk. So we are like sitting ducks. If a new virus comes in, a lot more people will get ill again and will overwhelm the healthcare system, and many of them will die prematurely. So what we need is a green amendment to prevent the future disease outbreaks and premature deaths. And I conclude by telling you a very personal thing. You know, I worked in many states around the country. You know, New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, Missouri, Washington, DC, Maryland. The difference between the good state and not so good state is the loophole, the size of the loophole that the legislators allow the legislation and the regulations to have for the powerful interest to go through. Okay. The state that's very healthy, you will see the loophole is very narrow. Few people can take advantage. And the state like us has a big loophole. And I give you one example concluding. When the ground was saturated and completely destroyed, contaminated by a polluter in our state, they were fined by the state. But guess what? The state turned around and gave them another license to pollute another property 9 miles away. That doesn't make any sense. So Green Amendment will guide us to a new way of doing things, which will allow for the industry to prosper while protecting the health of our people. I thank you very much for giving your time to me, for listening to me. And if there are any questions, I'll be delighted to answer now or after the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akhtar. And we're gonna go right into Maya's because of the time, but I wanted to thank, I see Representative Ron Gray has joined us, and I wanted to thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that you could come, and with that, we're gonna turn it over to Maya to go through the Green Amendment. And then again, if anyone has any questions that come to mind, feel free to put them right in the chat and we can take them after that. So I'm going to flip it over to Maya. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Akhtar, for that very powerful presentation. That was really compelling and so persuasive. And of course, I want to thank Representative Wilson Anton for being our legislative champion and really being the first to step out and advance the Delaware Green Amendment. So Maria gave me a very kind and robust introduction. So I won't introduce myself anymore other than to say two things. One, that I've actually been the Green Amendment for 30 years now. The number changes every year and sometimes I forget to update it on my bio. And the second thing to say is that I think the most important thing is to know that I've been doing environmental activism and environmental law for 30 years now. And so the founding of this Green Amendment movement is really an outgrowth of that 30 years of environmental activism and experiencing firsthand how our current system of environmental protection laws in the state of Delaware and across the nation really is fundamentally failing us. But I want to make sure you know, while I'm the mother of the Green Amendment movement here in the state of Delaware, as you can already tell, we have a really powerful coalition of activists and legislative champions and organizations that are all working together to advance this powerful pathway for protection. Now, when I talk about the Green Amendment movement and about needing this new pathway for environmental protection in Delaware and across our nation, often people ask me, well, Maya, why do we need a new pathway? In fact, how is it possible that there's room for a new pathway? Because here in Delaware and nationwide, we have hundreds of thousands of environmental protection laws, regulations, agencies, policies, programs, all of which are focused on advancing environmental protection for our communities. So with all of that going on, how is it possible that we want something more? How is it possible that we need something more? How is it possible that there's even space for something more? Well, we know that we need something more by looking at this issue from two angles. One, looking at the way the law works, and two, looking at the reality on the ground, which Dr. Akhtar, to a very significant degree, already covered. And so I will just touch upon later. But looking at the laws here in the state of Delaware and our system of governance when it comes to environmental protection, fundamentally, this system of laws is written in a way that accepts pollution and environmental degradation as a foregone conclusion and really hops us to the end of the decision-making process where we are thinking more about how to review the pollution and degradation we know that's about to happen, and what permits are we going to issue in order to manage the who, the when, the where we allow that pollution and degradation to happen. The system of laws and governance we have in Delaware is not focused first on prevention of pollution and degradation. In addition, there are a lot of gaps in the law. There are a lot of things that are not regulated until it's too late. PFAS is a perfect example of that. There's often poor implementation of the laws that we do have on the books for any number of reasons. It might be political will, it might be finances. In the end, does it really matter? No, poor implementation means that we're not getting the most robust protection that we are promised, that we're entitled to, and that we need. And too often, somebody gets into a position of political power that doesn't appreciate the power and importance of environmental protection and works very quickly to roll back even the protections that we do have on the books. And unfortunately, in this system of laws and governance, racism is very literally built in. And so that communities of color, indigenous communities, immigrant communities, and low-income communities are consistently, disproportionately, and very legally targeted for highly polluting industrial operations and environmentally degrading activities. And as a result, they suffer much more deeply from the impacts of pollution and degradation. So that's taking a look at what's happening in terms of how our system of laws works here in the state of Delaware. And we can see there's lots of room for improvement, lots of room for a green amendment. But we can also look at the news headlines, and you only have to do a Google search and you will very quickly come up with a series of headlines talking about how across the state, people are in fact drinking contaminated water, breathing polluted air, being forced to live next to toxic sites, and that in fact, environmental racism is alive and well across the state. So when we look at how the system of laws works, when we look at what's actually happening on the ground, we can see that something important is missing from our current system of environmental protection here in the state of Delaware. And I'm here to suggest to you that a very big something missing from our system of protection here in the state of Delaware is that we do not recognize the rights to a clean, healthy, and safe environment in the same way that we recognize and protect the other fundamental rights we hold dear. Things like the right to free speech, freedom of religion, private property rights, even the right to bear arms. All of these human, civil, and political rights that we hold dear are given a much higher level of protection in the state of Delaware. And that's because they are recognized in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution, and the rights to a clean, safe, and healthy environment is not. And yet we all know, we know in our hearts, we know in our minds, we know that pure water, clean air, stable climate, and a healthy environment, these are human rights that are worthy of Bill of Rights recognition and protection, right alongside those other human, civil, and political rights that we hold dear. And so we are here to suggest to you that what we need is we need people across Delaware, and frankly, we need people across the nation to rise up and demand and defend our environmental rights. And that really the best way that we can do that is to rise up together with a Green Amendment movement, to seek and secure the addition of environmental rights to the Bill of Rights section of our state constitutions and ultimately our federal constitution. Now, in order to accomplish the highest constitutional protection that we give to those other fundamental rights, not just any language will do. There are a lot of key elements that are essential. First off, the language has to be in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution. That's where we place those other fundamental rights we hold dear. So if we want to give environmental rights the same legal and constitutional standing and protection, we need them also to be found in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution. We need to be clear that we are in fact protecting the rights of all people. We need to be clear that we are protecting the life-sustaining essential elements of the environment, things like our water, our air, our climate, our ecosystems. We want to make sure that we are being clear that we also want to protect the essential qualities of our environment, the natural, the cultural, the human health, the scenic qualities of the environment that are so important to the people of Delaware, important to our health, important to our quality of life, and important to our economic development. And we also want to be clear that we're not just protecting the people who are here today, but we really are protecting the environmental rights of future generations yet to be born. And we want to be clear that these are rights that must be protected by every government official at every level of government in the state, from the local town council to the legislature, to the governor's office, to the court system, and to all the regulatory agencies in between. Now, right now, there are already 3 states that have this highest constitutional recognition and protection for environmental rights: Montana, Pennsylvania, and New York. Pennsylvania has these rights largely because of the work of myself and my organization, the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, breathing legal life into a long ignored provision that existed in the Pennsylvania Constitution for decades. Montana, who has similarly had an environmental rights protection of this kind for many, many years. And most recently, just last November, we were successful in working with allies in the state of New York to secure passage of a New York Green Amendment. And in fact, that amendment passed by 70% of the vote of the people of New York. I want to go talk just broad strokes about how things would change if we got a Delaware Green Amendment. We're not going to dive into the minutia. That's a little bit difficult, although I'm sure you might have some specific questions that we can talk about in the Q&A, but just broad strokes to give you an understanding of how a Green Amendment will change things when it comes to environmental protection in the state. First off, we will be giving environmental rights that highest constitutional and legal protection that we give to those other fundamental rights. We all know how powerfully the rights to free speech, the rights to freedom of religion, how powerfully private property rights, how powerfully the right to bear arms are protected in the state of Delaware because they are recognized and protected in the Bill of Rights section of the state constitution and our federal constitution. Well, now this same highest constitutional power will come to bear for our environmental rights, for our rights to clean water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments. Government will necessarily constitutionally be refocused on preventing environmental pollution, degradation, and harm first. They will not be allowed to just hop to the end of the decision-making process and think about how are we going to legalize pollution and degradation through permitting. If they are going to uphold their constitutional obligation from day one of government decision-making, whether they're legislating, regulating, permitting, whatever it is, they're going to have to be able to demonstrate that they thought first about how they could avoid pollution and degradation and infringing on environmental rights. It won't be good enough for government officials to say, well, we complied with the letter of the regulations and the legislation on the books. They're going to have to be able to demonstrate that they also complied with their constitutional obligation to protect environmental rights. This adds a new gloss of analysis, of assessment, and of protection to the governing process. Environmental justice will be incredibly strengthened because now every individual, regardless of their race, their ethnicity, their socioeconomics. Every individual will have the same constitutional right to a clean, safe, and healthy environment. And all government officials in the state will be duty bound to protect the environmental rights of all the people and to do so equitably. No longer will environmental sacrifice zones be constitutionally allowed. There will, in fact, be generational protection, which means government officials will be thinking more long-term as they're engaging in their governance, because they will have to think about how they're going to protect the environmental rights of the future generations. This is so powerful in so many aspects of environmental protection when you're really thinking about the cumulative impacts of water pollution or toxic contamination, and of course, also the climate crisis. The Green Amendment will provide powerful foundation for government officials who want to do better when it comes to the environment, pass new laws and new regulations that will provide much needed enhanced and increased protection for the state. They will be able to ground now those positive protective efforts in their constitutional obligation to protect environmental rights. But at the same time, having the Green Amendment will also strengthen the protections, the environmental protections that are already on the books. Because now, as government officials are interpreting and applying the laws, the regulations on the books, deciding how they're going to undertake their permitting obligations, they will be thinking about interpreting and applying those laws and those responsibilities in a way that will further, that will enhance, that will ensure protection of the environmental rights of all the people. So it really strengthens the existing laws on the books. And it will be a critical gap filler. Like I said, there are a lot of places in the law where there are gaps. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, PFOA, PFNA, right? PFOS. All of these parts of that man-made family of chemicals known as PFAS that were allowed to be utilized by industries of all kinds in ways that allowed this contamination to get into the environment and cause devastating harm to our bodies, to our drinking water supply, to our environments, to farmers, to people of all kinds. PFAS was allowed to get into the environment in such insidious ways because for so many years, it was not regulated. It either wasn't regulated or it wasn't meaningfully regulated. To this day, that is the case in Delaware and beyond when we look at this family of chemicals. If at the time PFAS was being created by industry and being utilized in ways that got into the environment, if we had had a Green Amendment, the people who are being harmed would have been able to turn to the constitutional right to force government officials to do better sooner in terms of preventing the use of PFAS in ways that allowed it to get into the environment. And when scientific data and analysis showed that PFAS was creating so much harm by being in the environment, people could have grabbed onto the Green Amendment to secure critical protections and actions sooner to actually avert the problem, clean up the problem, and prevent future problems. So it's a tremendous gap filler. The goal of a Green Amendment is to get better decisions in the first place. The reality of a Green Amendment is that when our government officials get it wrong, when they do undertake their roles and responsibilities as arms of the government, and they undertake those roles in a way that oversteps and infringes on the constitutional rights of the people to pure water, to clean air, to a stable climate, and to healthy environments, the people will be able to turn to the courts for the help they need to stop that unconstitutional behavior. And it's not just about the law, right? We will be fundamentally changing the law and hopefully changing behaviors in terms of how government operates and how courts operate, but we will also be further empowering the people, because now all of us, when we are going and speaking with our government officials, when we're going to public meetings and public hearings, we will no longer be going there with a heavy heart, hoping our government officials will do the right thing when it comes to protecting our environment and environmental rights. We will now be entering these conversations and these hearing rooms and these meeting rooms with an expectation that our government officials will protect our environmental rights, because now we are not only fighting for the environmental rights that we hold in our hearts and we hold in our minds, but we will be fighting for the environmental rights that we are entitled to in the Bill of Rights section of our Delaware State Constitution. And I want you to know that Delaware is rising up as a national leader in this moment. We have 3 states that have constitutional green amendments. We have nearly a dozen others where there are green amendment proposals, and half a dozen more where green amendment proposals are in the works, right? The grassroots are getting organized, and many people in many states are looking at what is happening here in our state of Delaware and how powerfully the grassroots and the communities are coming together to advance powerful language. I'm not going to take the time to read it, but this is actually the language that was proposed by Representative Wilson Anton and Senator Hansen. And very clearly and simply, it entitles all the people, including future generations, to a right to a clean, healthy, and safe environment. It protects those critical qualities of the environment that we talked about, and it ensures that the state is constitutionally duty-bound to protect the natural resources of Delaware for present and future generations in a meaningful, powerful, important, and understandable way. If you want to learn more, of course, there's the book, The Green Amendment. If you buy it, every penny goes back to the Green Amendment movement. But there's also a powerful website, www.degreenamendment.org, where you can get fact sheets and information in an ongoing basis to learn more and stay engaged. And with that, I will stop my share.
Thank you so much, Maya. So again, I'm going to remind everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to just type them in the chat. You'll see a chat box at the very bottom of your screen. You can just click on that and type a question in there, and we're more than happy to address it. Dr. Asher, Maya, and while we're waiting for any questions, I want to turn it over to Carrie while questions are coming in to talk about some of the next steps. Carrie.
Sure. So really simple call to action. We need all hands on deck. The Green Amendment is needed right now for all the reasons that were already mentioned. But there's another reason that wasn't, which is over the last several years, our communities have felt more and more divided because of powers outside of ourselves. And more people are wanting to feel connected again. Delaware is a small state where friends, family, neighbors with people across the political spectrum, people of different races, people of different socioeconomic standing, are our people. They're our fellow Delawareans. And the Green Amendment is something we can all rally behind. Something that we can all say, this works for us. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want to make sure that the food that we eat is grown in healthy soil. If we happen to eat meat, that our animals are healthy and eating healthy foods themselves. These are all things that we want. We want to make sure that we have an economy that is thriving and businesses that are generating revenue, but not at the expense of their owners, their employees, their neighbors. The Green Amendment can make all of these things happen. It can make a united Delaware. They can make a strong economy. And the icing on the cake, the most beautiful piece, is that at the end of the day, we can go out and rejoice and smell clean air, drink clean water, eat fresh and healthy food, and know that we did this together. Passing an amendment should not be easy because it should take a village to make a change to a document that binds us. But let's create that village. Let's work hard over these next 2 sessions to show that united, we are stronger. E pluribus una is from many one. That's our motto. That as the United States of America, this effort can make that happen. And so I encourage everyone to sign on, let their legislators know that this is something they support, you support, for your family, for your community, our state, and our nation. We have a lobby day coming up on May 17th. And a rally. The rally will start at 1 o'clock outside of Legislative Hall. I encourage everyone to show up. Bring your signs, bring your kids, bring your parents, bring yourselves, bring your voices. And following the lobby day, we will go and meet with our state legislators, state reps, and state senators to let them know why the Green Amendment is important to us, and to let them know that there will be a legislator education day coming up in the following weeks. We can't vote to pass the Green Amendment, but our representatives and senators can. Let's let them know we're behind this so they can cast these votes with the confidence that every one of their constituents knows that this is the best thing for themselves and their community. So we encourage you to join us. There's multiple ways to sign up depending on what makes you comfortable. You can email us at de@midatlanticjustice.org. Just give us your name, your contact information, and let us know if you'll be showing up for the rally day, the lobby day, or both. If you know who your legislators are, please list who they are so that we can help you set up the meetings. If you don't, just let us know your address and we can find your legislator for you. You can also give us a phone call or text us, 302-278, somebody's message popped up in front of my screen, 0973. Same information, name, if you'll be attending the rally, the lobby day, or both, and then finally who your legislators are, or if you need help finding them. Or you can register at bit.ly.ga22rally. You can put in that whole thing or just put bit.ly/the rest. I don't know why people are changing this here, but and you will just simply enter the information that is there and we will follow up with you. If for some reason you cannot make it, but you want to let your legislators know, you can reach out to them at any time. They're there for you. They want to be there for you. Let them know where you stand on this so that they can better vote in your favor. And if you need assistance reaching them, please don't hesitate to let us know so that we can carry your voice with us as we rally and lobby on May 17th.
Thank you so much for that, Carrie. And if anyone has a question, again, feel free to just type it in the chat before we sign off. We still have a couple minutes left. The one thing that I really want to stress with the Green Amendment, I work in many, many, many communities. This is not a partisan issue. I am going to tell you, everyone in Delaware is screaming about water quality, air quality, to hear the stories of folks who grew up playing in the streams and the rivers, and now their grandchildren cannot go into them or eat the fish out of them, is it's very sad. And that is a failure that we need to correct. We've been hearing just for the longest time, you know, that we got to fix water quality, but we're going in the wrong direction, as Dr. Octo pointed out from that report. So this is something everybody gains from. There is no losers in this. Everyone needs clean water. So with that, we want to thank everyone for attending. Please, please, please share this information with your neighbors. Show up for lobby day. Get in touch with your elected representatives. let them know your feelings on this. It's really important that we get this done. It has everything to do with the continued success of our state and protection of public health and our resources here. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Akhtar. We really appreciate you going through with the presentation, Maya, the whole team, Carrie, everyone who attended tonight. Please just get in touch with your neighbors, letters to the editor. Let's get it done. We need to get it done.